The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will, but wasn't Jose Aldo and what's his nuts, Eddie Alvarez on the downside of their career by the time we got to Conor McGregor? Like both of them, I think, have been smashed up good. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, I swear to God, I thought Jose Aldo was on the downswing by that point.
That was the first time Jose Aldo had lost a fight in a decade.
So the beginning of his downswing?
No, because he regained the belt.
Did he?
Yes.
Then why do I think that the guys surrounding Conor McGregor at the time that he was on his rise were not that great?
Because you don't like Conor, which is fair. I don't like Conor.
It's not that I don't like Conor. I like him as a celebrity fighter. I just don't think he's as good as we were led to believe on like his rise up. But like I still, for whatever reason, and I don't know why I'm thinking this, and I'm so stuck on it. I can't get this thought out of my head that like the guys that he was fighting at that time were either on the downswing on the second half of their career, or they weren't that good. But then you just yelled at me, Jose Aldo and Eddie Alvarez, which I remember Eddie Alvarez being the shit at one point, but also being put through the meat grinder once he got to the UFC.
No, he came to the UFC, struggled his first fight, won his next two, then won the belt.
I mean, who doesn't?
It's the lightweight division. The vast majority of them don't. Like far and away, the vast majority do not.
Well, that's because everybody in mixed martial arts fights at 150 fucking pounds. They're all the same size. It's 1,000 guys at 150 and Brock Lesnar.
Your recollection of reality as it pertains to MMA is sad. Very sad.
Yes, I'm having this fight with the guy who has to live and breathe and eat this shit. Hello and welcome to...
I'm the wrong guy to pick that fight with, man.
Yeah, I kind of walked into a howitzer. Decided to argue with it. Now, see here, old boy. Speaking of old boys, hello and welcome to Damn You Hollywood. That over there. That over there is your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
And that over there puts the old in the old boy for this particular articulation. It's Mark Radulich.
Hi.
Who's beginning his yelling at clouds arc.
Conor McGregor is the worst soccer player I've ever seen. And let me tell you another thing about baseball.
What do you mean they replaced Mike Goldberg on commentary? When did this happen?
I remember the old days of the UFC where there were men and the sheep were frightened.
I knew you were going to say that.
And a cop could win the tournament because he was a last-minute replacement to an injured person.
That happened. Yes, that's a thing. So
that did, in fact, happen. Hey, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, for the record, I'll talk with you about UFC 301 after this if you feel so inclined.
I just come on your show now. Let me tell you another thing I don't like about Conor McGregor.
You're welcome to. You'll find no complaints from me if you want to come on and say Conor McGregor is a terrible actor and a mediocre fighter.
Fair enough.
So tonight we're talking about the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. This was released last week.
Speaking of our conversation about UFC.
One of the characters is Irish. That's our segue.
Hey, woohoo!
That's the closest we can get. And the guy playing Winston Churchill might as well be Conor McGregor for how terrible a job he does.
Not for nothing, but I thought it was the guy who played Dick Cheney in Vice.
You thought it was Christian Bale?
Yes, in the same makeup. You know what's fun about tonight? It's just us. We this is a good old fashioned Mark and Robert Winfree who mess around.
When Mark doesn't have to pretend to be a professional.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna let all my cock and balls out tonight, buddy. Woo!
So if you want to see that, check out Mark's OnlyFans.
The difference is it's just me and you. You and me. Like I said about my girlfriend, you get up for everything. We don't need to. I can just call it in the ring. We don't need to plan it out like Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat. I can just do shit. You get up for everything. I get up for everything. We have ourselves a good old fashioned Bryan Danielson type match. Okay, it's Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega up in this bitch. Whenever I have like Alexis on here or somebody, I gotta slow the fuck down. I gotta make sure she remembers the moves and can go from move to move. I gotta make sure the ladder's where they're supposed to be. I got all kinds of things to do. I can't just have fun. I can't have fun because if I let you two go, this will be a Bruno Sammartino 12-hour fucking Iron Man match, and the people will have gone home.
As long as they paid to get in the door, we got them. That's all we need.
Okay, Vince. Anyway.
Tell me I'm wrong. So, Mark, tell us about the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
I will, Robert Winfree of the Screaming Boy podcast. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is a 2024 spy action comedy film directed, co-written, and co-produced by Guy Ritchie, starring Henry Cavill, Eiza González, Alan Ritchson, Henry Golding, and Alex Pettyfer. Based on the 2014 book Churchill Secret Warriors, the explosive true story of the Special Forces Desperadoes of World War II, by Damien Lewis, the film portrays a heavily fictionalized version of Operation Postmaster. It had its premiere April 13th, 2024 in New York City and was released in the U.S. on April 19th, 2024. So this stars Henry Cavill, and one of the things that came out of this movie was that this bombed. We'll talk about that later.
This is not doing very well financially.
But there was an article, and I posted it in our chat. I reposted it on Facebook, and it basically said this is the second bomb this year from Henry Cavill, and like his fourth bomb in a row. And I thought, well, that's worth examining at the very least.
So, one, I will not stand for the slander of that particular article. It's terrible.
Okay,
hang on, and let me tell you why. Because Argyle is not his fault. Claiming that as a Henry Cavill bomb is a bit like saying, Gary Oldman really gets credit for Oppenheimer because he was in it for 2 seconds.
Yeah, I was going to say, Henry Cavill was not the star of Argyle. I mean, we covered it. We don't need to go into it, but the star of that is Bryce Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard, you misogynist.
Sure. And then what's his face?
Sam Rockwell.
Were the stars of that thing. Him and John Cena have cameos.
Yeah.
And for their part.
And yet, if you watch the trailers,
they marketed him all over the place. And I think people were smart to realize that he's not really the star. We're not really watching a Henry Cavill, John Cena buddy cop action movie. We're watching.
Now that you brought it up, I do kind of want that.
We're watching Howard Dallas Bryce, run around with a cat. So
a CGI'd cat, mind you.
Right. And if you wait a minute, it'll be on Apple Plus, it'll be available PVOD. So who gives a fuck? And that's kind of the world that we're living in. So, it's hard to hold that one against him. He was in Enola Holmes 2.
That's a Netflix movie.
Okay. We don't count Black Adam. We don't count Zack Snyder's Justice League. Don't count Enola Holmes 1.
Also Netflix.
He was in something called Night Hunter in 20. So we're all the way back to 2018 now.
So again, this is kind of the point that I wanted to bring up with that piece of crap article. Oh no, Black Adam bombed. Nobody knew he was in that. Or Zack Snyder's Justice League.
You can't ignore the fact that that's The Rock's movie and he's in it for a few seconds at the end. That's not a Henry Cavill movie. No,
that's a Dwayne Johnson bomb, and he should have to wear that.
Yes, ascribe the bomb to the right actor.
And or again, some of these Netflix metrics that I've heard rumors about, maybe these weren't quite just shut up.
All right, so
if we're going back 5 years, I'm sorry, the whole world's a different place in 2018.
Yeah, okay, so from 2018, so the last big hit movie that he was in, he co-starred against Tom Cruise in Fallout, Mission Impossible Fallout, and that made a metric fuck ton of money. That made, on a $180 million budget, that made almost $800 million. It was a certified hit. So that's the thing. In between Fallout, where he was the co-star, and the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, he's made either a small budget movie, or he made a Netflix movie, or he was in a re-edited 4-hour straight to max movie, or he was in or he had cameos, because The Flash is in there too. And no, we're not counting that.
No, that should.
So basically, he hasn't had a real movie since 2018. So you can't sit there and say like, oh, he's not a draw. First of all, we've already established nobody's a draw anymore. Second of all, that's not a fair comparison.
Yeah, draws in Hollywood these days don't really exist, and I think the industry is starting to realize what a poor decision that was.
Yeah.
Though, also in fairness, a giant portion of the death of the movie star was social media, when those idiots could just spew their consciousness into the void, and everyone realized, boy, these people suck.
It is amazing what happens when you're surrounded by yes men and your opinions validated by people who are just hangers on, and then suddenly you think that very smart, very witty opinion is set out for public consumption, and you have to face the harsh reality that you're a toaster oven.
Yep.
like the reality that these people suddenly had to live in was not. I mean, poor Leslie What's-Her-Nuts had to leave Twitter.
But I'm an artist. No.
Shut up. So before that was Justice League. I mean, you can't just ascribe that to Henry Cavill. That goes to Jason Momoa and Ben Affleck.
And the failure of the Justice League movie, we've talked about at length, and some of that was avoidable, to be clear. Some of that was not. Like your director having to quit halfway through because of personal tragedy. You can't. What are you going to do?
Right. So before that, he was in something called Sandcastle, which was a small movie. And then before that was Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, which, again, not his fault, or you have to blame everyone involved, not just Henry Cavill.
Also, much as you and I kind of were iffy on Batman v Superman, it made a lot of money. Isn't that the point?
Well, it did make $1 billion, but yes, it did make a lot of money.
It made north of $700 million. It was fine.
So the other one that everyone's pointing to is the other Guy Ritchie collaboration he did was The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which came out in 2015. Ago. Yeah. So now we're up to 10 years ago. For $75 million, I made 110. So this bombed as well. And
look, okay, for the record, a decade ago, someone decided to dust off the old chestnut of taking an old TV show, trying to turn it into a movie, and they released a spy thriller when Mission Impossible is still king of the walk.
But you know what I don't understand about that is why anyone still thinks that's a good idea, because they tried this with the Avengers too. Not that Avengers, you dorks, the other Avengers, and it bombed as well, as I recall.
Yes, that is universally regarded as a very terrible movie.
And they keep dusting off things like the Green Hornet and all the stuff from like my parents' generation, and like none of this shit has worked since what's his nuts is Dick Tracy.
Okay, hang on. There have been a handful of these that have worked to one degree or another. If you want the list, I can give it to you. It's fairly short. For some reason, and I don't know how or why or what concoction of alchemy made this work, I really don't, but the Charlie's Angels movie actually works.
You really don't know why that worked?
If I knew why that worked, I could tell you specifically why the second one bombed.
Okay, so the first one worked. One, it was a whole other time and place when that movie got made, but also it was, hot chicks doing action stuff in kind of a goofy movie. So it hits a lot of check marks to bring in a wide audience, number one. And also, you got to remember who's in that. That's Cameron Diaz when she's in her It Girl period. That's, Drew Barrymore 2.0. And I don't remember the third person.
Lucy Liu.
Oh, yeah, and Lucy Liu when she was a thing. So at that time, it's not even so much that yes, they dusted off an old chestnut and threw it out there, but they could have called that a ham sandwich. It would have done just as well.
No, hang on.
It was hot chicks doing action.
I'm going to push back on you on that. Otherwise, other movies of that same ilk would have done better. There is something. It's a time and place that just couldn't be recreated. I don't know. Again, there's alchemy involved in that one that I still don't fully understand. The other one of these that kind of worked was the SWAT movie.
Okay. Well, that one I got nothing for you.
Now that one again, it's not a giant, but it does fine. It has the right people attached. It works okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. The vast majority of these, this is a
so again ascribing the failure of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. to Henry Cavill as not an action star from 10 years ago when the world was an entirely different place is not fair. So the whole point of this conversation,
everyone understands this. They're blaming part of their trend tracking is going back to the Obama administration.
Yeah. So I'm still.
That's why I don't take these people seriously.
So, the law offices of Radulich and Winfree, a subsidiary of Dewey, Screw 'em and How, is the following. You can't lay the blame for this movie not doing well solely at the feet of Henry Cavill. And to ascribe to him box office failure is, I think, a bridge too far. There aren't enough movies that he is solely responsible for putting up the star power to really gauge that in a window that makes any degree of sense. We just deconstructed it for you. However, if you would like to lay blame at somebody's feet, if you are looking at the murder victim that is the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare and trying to find who done it, you're looking at the wrong person in Henry Cavill. Who you should be looking at is Guy Ritchie. And this is what you wanted to talk about, because Guy Ritchie has fallen off considerably since the salad days of Aladdin and Snatch and Smoke.
Okay, hold on.
Barrels and so on.
Stop.
Yes.
So you understand what you just did. You said the salad days of Aladdin, 2019.
Yep. Big hit. $1 billion.
Hang on. And then you said Snatch, which is from 1994.
It was a big hit, though.
No, it wasn't.
People really liked it.
People who saw it liked it. I like it. It's a good movie. But you just you ignored like 15 years.
That's what happens when I talk off the cuff. Just go on. Just move the ball for me.
And I'm fairly sure I got the year wrong there for Snatch in particular, but it's something like that.
Sure.
So we do kind of have to talk about Guy Ritchie for a minute here, because Guy Ritchie's filmography is interesting. This is a guy who gained a fair amount of acclaim fairly early, but didn't have a legitimate bigger hit.
Hang on, just so I can fix what I did here.
Okay.
So yes, I went from 2019's Aladdin all the way back to 2000 Snatch in 1998, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrel, and skipped all kinds of shit in between.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So Guy Ritchie first kind of breaks onto the scene with stuff like Rock and Rolla, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He's actually kind of a nice sort of counterpoint to kitchen sink realism in the British cinema scene.
I think, as far as what's his first blockbuster, it's probably Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah,
but $90 million budget, made $524.
Yeah, that's the point I was getting to. Is he developed a fair amount of cult-ish following, smaller budget stuff that got good acclaim, was usually looked forward to, and then gains real prominence with his two Sherlock Holmes movies.
Right. The second one, Game of Shadows, on a $125 million budget, made about $543. So, fair to mention.
The second one was not as well received as the first, and there's reasons for that. Some of which are legitimate, some of which I think is just the market being stupid. So
we talked about the Man from U.N.C.L.E. bombs, then the King Arthur bombs, and then
we reviewed his King Arthur movie, for the record, people, if you want to go back and listen to it.
And then he gets just the world's greatest bump from Walt Disney, and he gets to make Aladdin, and that on a $183 million budget, he makes $1 billion movie.
And unfortunately, I think that people,
and then the world ended.
Well, not only the world radically shifted, but nothing about the success of Aladdin is necessarily ascribable to Guy Ritchie.
just as a point of fact, The Gentleman came out in the same year. We got to it in 2020, and we did it during like COVID when it was PVOD because we had nothing else to review. And I wanted to see it. But just so people get it, like in the shadow of Aladdin, which made $1 billion, he makes this, small, very Guy Ritchie-ish $22 million movie.
It's about the most Guy Ritchie movie you could make.
Yeah. It got put out by Entertainment Film Distributors and like STX. They make all the Netflix movies. That made $115 million. I mean, so he still got the touch. We reviewed Wrath of Man that came out in 2021. And that also made money. That was a $40 million flick. I mean, $104 million at a time that nobody was going to the movies.
Well, yeah. Again, this is part of the problem though that starts to hit Guy Ritchie is with Wrath of Man. Because that movie. I mean, imagine for just a minute, Mark, that Wrath of Man gets released in 2024. Same movie.
Right.
Does it do $100+ million these days, or is it?
No, and here's the thing. Like, so what follows is Operation Fortune Rouge, which has been delayed since the year of our Lord, 1970 or some shit.
Well,
like, yeah. That got delayed a bunch. But then
a lot of delays, especially its release here in the United States was pushed back. I finally saw a trailer for it like the week before it came out and went, what are we doing here?
Right. Then we have The Covenant, which came out on time, but also bombed. And that brings us to the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Yeah.
So what happened here?
Well, my hunch is Guy Ritchie's tricks have started to be exposed. Mm-hmm. He's not the most nimble of filmmakers. He has a style. He has the stuff he likes to do, and God bless him. That's fine. But some of his tricks are relatively shallow, and like the worst thing you can be at this point if you're a director in Hollywood is everything you do feels the same. I mean, we can joke about Martin Scorsese making nothing but mob movies. Killers of the Flower Moon and The Irishman and The Departed, none of those are the same movie. To say nothing of something like Silence or so.
I would even make the argument that the Guy Ritchie is most successful when he is making the same movie. The problem we're going to talk about with the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is, and I said this to you before we started tonight, this should not have been a Guy Ritchie movie. He should have produced it maybe, but he should have had a director that doesn't do his style. His style works with movies like The Gentleman. His style works with movies like Wrath of Man. It doesn't work with this kind of movie.
I mean, the supreme irony being that Wrath of Man is actually a very brooding film.
Yeah. My point being, I think that, to your point about people have already caught on to what the Guy Ritchie thing is, I think there's still a market, though, for watching Guy Ritchie swing a camera. And I think people who want to watch Guy Ritchie swing a camera only want him to swing it in this very particular box. And if he steps out of that box, they're not interested. And
again, I think there is some of that, but the other maybe bad thing that happened to him was Aladdin. Oh, hey, here's this thing that I could have directed Aladdin, and it would have made $1 billion.
I would love to see your version of Aladdin, where we kill Aladdin in the first 5 minutes.
No. That's not how that would have gone.
He falls. No, even better. He falls off the magic carpet. It falls to his death. And the whole rest of the movie is just dealing with that.
Why do you think that's what I would do with that story?
I don't know, but now I'm really laughing to myself about that. Robert would be very depressing take on Aladdin.
Somewhere in the middle of I Can Show You the World, they run into a tornado or something and he's flung to his death.
I just want to see an entire like you have that one company now doing like taking Winnie the Pooh and making it Blood and Honey and like every and making it horror movies. I want to take like your particular like directing aesthetic is to make everything tragic, depressing, and horrifying. So it's all horror aesthetic. It's all people dying and being gory, but in the most sad, most depressing way possible. It'll be a new genre of films, the tragic horror.
Well, that's been around for a long time, actually. So
everyone just walked up very sad. I tried to enjoy all the gore, but it's such a sad movie. Robert Winfree, everybody.
Somehow I depress people more than a Serbian film. And for the record, I'm not saying generically movies from Serbia. There's a movie called A Serbian Film.
Yes.
Do not look it up. It's terrible.
Anyway, wrapping up our discussion of Guy Ritchie and where he has fallen.
Yeah, it's always weird when someone gets put into a can't miss situation and then tries to ride that high.
Mm-hmm.
So again, hey, direct Aladdin. Okay, you and I actually had issues with Aladdin. And no one remembers it because it's not very good. It's not bad. I don't think it's a bad live action adaptation of that story, but I struggle to call it good.
Guy Ritchie's best technique, the thing that makes him, I think, a successful director is he is able to handle a busy picture. What made Aladdin work was how busy it was many times, and he was able to use his technical acumen to make a watchable picture. The problem with when he doesn't do that is when it's not busy and he's doing all the same stuff, you start to see the flaws in his directing style.
You know what he should have done instead of King Arthur? This is the guy who should have done the Robin Hood movie.
Yeah. Again, the one where they use a bow and arrow as a machine gun.
I mean, that movie's terrible, but Guy Ritchie is the one who needed to do a Robin Hood movie.
I would agree.
Because that is so much more in his wheelhouse than anything he's done recently.
All right, so let's get into the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
So, set during World War II, like all good World War II movies. I've only seen one that was post-war that I thought was really, really good.
And here we are with a World War II movie set in the Korean War. What the fuck?
Something like that, actually, yeah. There's a lot of weird movies out there.
Yeah.
But this is not too long after France has fallen, so we've had the Dunkirk evacuations. The bombing of England has started. And Hitler has offered terms to the United Kingdom. Basically unconditional surrender. And everyone that isn't Winston Churchill says, yes, we should surrender. And Winston Churchill says, no, you all, what are you talking about? You bunch of idiots.
Right.
We're not doing this. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get Cary Elwes and I'm going to get Ian Fleming because since Guy Ritchie's never actually going to direct a James Bond movie, we're going to get as close as we can here. And what we need you guys to do is do something about the U-boats. They're causing us all kinds of problems. And the United States won't ship a bunch of troops over until they have some degree of security around.
From what I understand, they were sinking supply ships sent from the U.S.
Yeah, this is about the Battle of the Atlantic, basically, which is a fascinating topic that this movie does no service to. And remember that bit that Mark said this is highly fictionalized? Highly is italicized.
Yeah, so the whole point here is that in order for the U.S. to enter the war and continue getting supplies to England before, as Eddie Izzard put it, they start throwing snow cones at tanks. They gotta sink the U-boat, or they got to do something. They
have to diminish the effect of the German U-boats across the Atlantic Ocean.
So here's our team.
And bear in mind, you know, I'm sure Pearl Harbor had nothing to do with this, but so Winston Churchill gets gets M and says, "We got to do something about this. Figure it out, and let's make it highly illegal, and it'll be covert, and it'll be all that real cool stuff, right?" And they go, "Well, this is a war. I don't know why we would have to go through these weird channels you're trying to put up, but if you think it's cool, sir, then party on." And they bring in Henry Cavill to lead this particular motley crew, and Henry Cavill goes, "Okay, I need a certain particular set of men with a certain particular set of skills." And he runs through the people he needs, and they go, "Well, we can get you most of those, but one of those guys, he's in prison. Oh, well, we'll have to bust him out. Well, we're in kind of a time crunch. Yeah, but you said he's conveniently being held in the Canary Islands, which is on our way. So, hey, good times." And we've got 2 spies who are going to be on the island because what we're going to do, we're going to stop the resupply train for the German U-boats, which are all in this one island off the coast of Nigeria. which is technically a Spanish colony at the time. And we're going to go blow up some boats and stop this, and then America can enter the war and all will be saved. So this is where they do that. They get in the boat. They sail down the coast of Africa. They save their remaining guy in a really good action sequence, actually, where they just massacre a German camp. Save the guy. Resume travel. We spend way too much time with my big criticism of this movie. We spend way too much time with the spies on the island. And there's, the Nazi governor or whatever have you. They never actually specify his rank or what he's doing there. He's the guy in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit of a jurisdictional nightmare because technically this is a Spanish colony, and Spain is not really affiliated at this point in the war. Spain spent a lot of World War II in civil strife. This is post-Spanish Civil War, if memory serves, but that was a gnarly thing that they were still recovering from. And we have to speed up the timetable at one point or another, and then we all arrive, and we go to blow things up, but the ship's been reinforced. Never mind that's in a very expensive procedure that requires dry docking and is a whole other thing. We're told by the movie, don't think about it, just shut up and go along. So instead of blowing up the ship, we must now steal it. Okay? So most of the German soldiers get taken to a party. There's another party for the officers so that we can have an attractive woman sing a song in a dress. And then the spy blows her cover in the dumbest way possible. And I do mean that.
She says something in Yiddish.
I'll yell about this in a minute. Hang on. I'll yell about it in a minute.
In Yiddish, and they're like, hey, wait a minute, that's Yiddish. You shouldn't be doing Yiddish. You're supposed to be doing German.
I'll yell about it in a minute.
Yeah.
So everything goes to hell like it does when the plan goes off about 90% of the way. There's a lot of great kills. There's some good action set pieces. Then things go sideways like they do. And but they are able to use a couple of tugboats to pull out this ship into the ocean. They're able to kill again a couple of the high-ranking people. Lots of explosions. They deliver this ship to the British Navy. British Navy takes them all into custody because what you're doing is illegal, and then they all go back to England in chains. Winston Churchill then shows up and sings Amazing Grace, frees them from their bondage, and they go on to form the basis of MI6, basically, is the long and the short of this. And we end with title cards about all the real people and what they went on to do after this, and it's, it is what it is.
So, I said before that this should not have been directed by Guy Ritchie. And part of that is I think it needed to be, the brutality needed to be treated with the weight and gravity that it was showing on screen, and instead it treats it like a Guy Ritchie movie. Watch Operation Ruse the Gear. Roddy and I reviewed it for a triple feature. Watch Wrath of Man. Robert and I reviewed it for Damn You Hollywood. Two great examples of very highly stylized action that gets treated with the fanciful grandiosity that it deserves. Jason Statham looks awesome kicking things. Cool. Watching Jason Statham take on an army of goons in both of these movies works. And watching Guy Ritchie whip a camera around while he's doing it makes it look really cool on screen. The problem is, I think Guy Ritchie knew he couldn't do that with this movie. And so it's like he's trying to stylize up the action, but knows he can't without doing a giant disservice to this time period. So a lot of the action, while brutal, isn't as effective as it could have been because it doesn't carry a tremendous amount of weight. That's a big problem I have.
There's a scene where Alan Ritchson cuts a guy's heart out.
Yeah.
And it's played for laughs. Never mind that Alan Ritchson is playing a character who, in this universe, in reality, and is stated in this world to be 19.
Yeah, he's also like 9 feet tall and 9 feet wide. He's huge.
Yeah, Alan Ritchson is a very large man, and he's not a bad actor. That's not a complaint. That's an observation about the silliness of this movie.
Right. So it's just to kind of square off that scene. Like, there's a guy chained up and he has a battery chained to his nipples, and they don't take the time to take the nipple clamps off of him or or disconnect the battery. He's like, hang on, you'll be fine. I got to cut this guy's heart out. And it's like, I think it's Predator, where the guy makes the earring, makes the necklace of ears and things like that. And it's like, or I can't remember if it was Predator or Platoon, but there's been some pretty, another example. I know exactly what movie this is from, Full Metal Jacket, where you have the helicopter gunner gunning down civilians in Vietnam, and you have the one reporter who's with Matthew Modine who's like throws up in the helicopter because this is brutal and inhumane. Because as he's gunning these people down, he seems to be doing it like joyfully, and it's meant to show you man's inhumanity to man. And if you're trying to show like cutting a guy's heart out is not cool, you can make it cool if that's what you want to do, but you have to understand that it's not inherently a cool thing. It's horrible. It shows that this person is now disconnected from the social contracting that goes on between humans that allows civilizations to flourish. Either treat it that way or don't put it in the movie. But here, as Robert said, they do it for laughs, and it just seems like Guy Ritchie desperately wanted to. You said this before about somebody else. Like this was someone's audition for James Bond. Like Guy Ritchie's auditioning in this movie to direct a James Bond movie, and if this is what he's going to do with it, please don't. Stay the fuck away from James Bond. Stuff needs to have weight and gravity and mean something in these movies. And Guy Ritchie, I would rather see Guy Ritchie do a Marvel movie at this point. At least then,
there's no way the Marvel system would allow Guy Ritchie to be Guy Ritchie. But I get your point.
Well, you want to do fancy and fanciful, and you want to do wildly fictional, and people doing stuff that only superheroes can get away with. Then let Guy Ritchie do that, and I think it'll be a fun movie to watch. Giving him something that's supposed to be brutal, and him, not really understanding the gravity of what he's doing apparently doesn't really work. That was like my big problem with it. Like I liked the movie well enough; it was okay. I was thinking about my son's reaction to Abigail because this is the most okayest movie I've seen in a while. I think the actors are pretty and they give good performances. Eiza González is doing everything she is asked to do to the best of her ability, and it comes off really, really well. The problem is, who gives a fuck? Again, nothing of what she does seems to carry any weight within the movie. It just seems like
the entire set, the middle half of this movie, where we spend most of it with the spies on the island,
right,
is such a bore.
That's the thing. Like I said, when I'm looking at the individual performances and I'm looking at the set pieces and the exchanges of dialogue and the sexual tension between the characters, it's all there. I'm not going to say it's not there, and I'm not going to like brutalize the film about it. It's all there, and it all kind of works. But like you said, the reason there's no tension. Think about I believe it's Inglourious Bastards. I believe it is.
Yeah, I'm about to compare this movie to that one a lot.
Well, yeah, so is everyone else.
Very unflattering ways.
A lot of people are comparing it. I mean, especially the critically acclaimed guys. But think about Inglourious Bastards opening scene with Christoph Waltz in the milk, and how much just him talking to the dude with the milk, and and then the shot of the women in the basement and all of that. How much tension that produces. Like, you as an audience member are on the edge of your seat and scared to death for these girls. There's nothing like that in this movie, and there should have been. Like, this was a very serious thing, and if you're talking about like as an event in history of which the entire war hinges upon its success, I don't get that sense of urgency in this movie.
Yeah.
I often think about, like, Dorian and I talked about wanting to make a movie together, and one of the things we talked about was we desperately want to bring modern cinema back to like the salad days of the 80s action movie. I don't want to concern myself with modern mores. I don't want to concern myself with woke or inclusion or anything else like that. I want the film to be be natural.
You want to make like Commando for 2024 is what you want to make.
But I want to make Commando. I don't want to do 2024's Commando where he's
hang on. I don't mean like you want to apply contemporary mores to it. I mean you want to make Commando in 2024.
Exactly. And I'll stand against the slings and arrows of people who say this is not the era for this kind of movies. No. This is exactly what we need right now. It's the movie we need, not the movie we deserve. So, and I feel like Guy Ritchie tried to do that here. Like Guy Ritchie saw what was happening in the culture and going, let me make a movie. And I'm going to quote William Bibiani here. He's just like, that's brutal and a little gay. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And he was largely successful. And I think making a man's movie like this movie definitely feels like one, you would watch, a movie for guys who like movies. And I think that's where its large success is. The problem is I would rather him have just had a fictional concept then and not try to take a historical thing, because I think that's what doesn't work about this movie for me is he's too restrained. He's not going full Guy Ritchie, which he needs to. He either needs to go full Guy Ritchie or no Guy Ritchie. This is half pregnant Guy Ritchie, and it's kind of flat. I'm going to take a breath so that you can weigh in here, but that's kind of like Alan Ritchson's fine. Henry Cavill's fine. The costumes are fine. The set pieces are fine. The aesthetic, the color paleting is all okay. It's not the kind of dynamic, fanciful Guy Ritchie we want in a Guy Ritchie movie. And in better hands, I think the kind of movie this should have been would have been better handled.
There's a couple of major writing problems here that I think contribute a lot to that. There's a lot of repetition in this movie, believe it or not. There's a bit in the beginning when, when the mission is being described briefly. This is like M and Churchill talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, you won't be in uniform. You won't be sanctioned. If you're caught by the British, you'll be thrown in jail. And if you're caught by the Germans, it'll be torture and death. And then like 3 scenes later, Henry Cavill says the exact same thing when describing the scene to the people he's now recruited.
Yeah.
And it's redundant in a way that is utterly unhelpful.
This need to have been handled the way you handle like a heist movie. Ocean's 11. It needed that kind of whimsy and that kind of pacing.
Yeah, the 2-hour runtime is another problem here.
Mm-hmm.
This thing it's a drag in the middle. We spend a lot of time on again the 2 spy characters, and they're just not interesting, and they're not doing anything interesting.
Yeah,
and
it kind of rests on Eiza González is pretty, and that part of Nigeria is also pretty, and that's kind of all there is.
And I'm sorry, but I'm not saying she's an unattractive woman, but if the big selling point is look at her in different outfits and isn't she an attractive woman, you don't have a lot there. Like
right. We agree with you, Guy Ritchie. What are we doing here?
Yeah. So it's just, I mean, at one point they say of the main villain, Lur, I think his name is, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's described as the only thing worse than a Nazi. And they just leave that line there. Like, I'm down to say there's worse things than Nazis, but you can't just, like, there's an implication there that is way too opaque.
Right.
And way too obscure to actually work. Yeah, he's a bad guy. We know he's a bad guy. But, like, again, what does he actually do here?
Right.
We never see him in uniform. We never see, like, he's clearly in some form of...
He doesn't carry any menace. Like, even when he figures out that she's a spy and she's Jewish and all of that.
Okay,
like,
so...
once he realized... once he realized she was Jewish, it needed to be like Haggard from the fucking Last Unicorn. And it's not... It doesn't hit that pitch at all.
He should just stand up in the middle of her performance like a Invasion of the Body Snatchers and point.
Yeah. There should have been guys like wrestling her to the ground, like it really should, you as an audience member should have been in fear for her life. And I'm not. That's a missed opportunity.
Okay. So in the great pantheon of ways spies can blow their cover, the best, I think, is still from Inglourious Bastards, when Michael Fassbender holds up 3 fingers instead of 3 fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And that works because that is subtle. That is almost obscure knowledge that would not necessarily be part of your briefing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's entirely believable that if something's going to slip, it's a really small habit like that. That's just, it's enough to tell them you're not who you say you are. Then there's the trap. And there's a trick in spycraft, in like detecting spycraft, especially if you're dealing with different languages. There was another movie that this happened in recently, forgive me, I can't remember it, where we conduct our conversation in, I'll say German for the sake of German. One of the tricks is, once your business is concluded, when they're done, they've turned around, the tension's broken, say something to them in a different language. If you think they're English, do your business in German, then as they're going away, say in English, bye. It's something to that effect. You have a good evening. You do something like that to see if they respond, because there's an ingrained pattern in how we respond to stuff like that, and you don't do it in a false language or a second language. So that's another way people get caught. These are things that, again, one is the subtlest of slips for very obscure knowledge. 2 is maybe falling prey to a bit of a trap that we all know works. Then there's tripping over yourself, switching from German to Yiddish while singing Mac the Knife. This is the dumbest thing ever. Just the straight up dumbest.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I wanted this to spend more time with our commandos, to be perfectly honest. They have good chemistry, and Henry Cavill being slightly manic is all kinds of awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he breaks in on that German officer telling a joke and just laughs maniacally before gunning everybody down. It's a great shot. It's genuinely funny. But again, like you said, the tone's off. The tension and the stakes are a little bit off. The pacing's a bit off. There's writing issues. This is just, it's okay. I don't mean to say this is a bad movie, but because it's not bad. It's about this much off from being really good in several different places. And it all just kind of adds up to a meh.
There's going to be people who watch this movie who are super casual about movies. Some of them will be our friends, and many of them will be strangers. But they're all going to have the same. They're all going to enjoy this movie if they don't know it's directed by Guy Ritchie. Oh, this is just a fun war picture where Alan Ritchson and Henry Cavill slaughter people. And I liked watching them slaughter people. And Eiza González was really pretty. And I liked watching her in a silky white dress sing Mac the Knife. Because that's really all you need to... That's really all you need to entertain people, you know? They're not going to think about this movie.
Not.
They're not going to... no, this movie's it's bombing in theaters, but the people will watch it at home. When this movie is available to watch, people will watch it, and they're gonna, and they're gonna go back and they're gonna listen to this review, and they're gonna go like, I don't understand what you didn't like about this movie. And that's the point. It's if you think about it and you start talking about different elements of the movie, it all kind of unravels. However, if you're just looking for very casual, manly war picture that's slightly gay,
this is a great. This movie is great.
It's fine.
This movie is really good background noise.
Yeah.
Put it on your second monitor while you're doing something else.
Right.
Cool. And I don't have a problem with movies being that, but you have to acknowledge that's what it is.
Yeah, this is perfectly good passive man's entertainment, which isn't good filmmaking. And I really need to stress that point because I already can see the fight I'm going to have with people, and I'm kind of tired of having it. So I'm going to be very clear about this. Good filmmaking is a very specific thing. It's something we talk about on here every week, and we try to tell people what good filmmaking is. That seems to aggravate people because they think what they like is good. That's not how that works. What you like is just what's appealing to you. I like Taco Bell. I wouldn't call it. It's not like a 4-star fucking restaurant.
And to further the point, I hate Taco Bell.
There you go.
So which of us is right?
There are, again, I'll say it, there are very objective, strict elements that make films good. And to the best of our knowledge, amateurs that we are, that's what we're talking about. But we acknowledge that just because something isn't necessarily quote unquote good, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. This is a perfectly enjoyable film.
It's mostly enjoyable, yeah.
It is a perfectly enjoyable film, and I think most casual people who watch it will enjoy it and want to understand what we're talking about. Great. You're not the kind of person who thinks about what is objectively good or objectively bad. You're very much thinking about subjectively what you think is good and what you think is bad. And those are not the same things. And the faster we get to that point, the faster we'll stop fighting about this garbage.
And for the record, last criticism I have to levy at this movie. Once again, the worst film version of Winston Churchill I've ever seen.
I don't know if it was on air or off air where I said, my God, that looked like fucking Christian Bale from as Dick Cheney in Vice. Worth repeating. All right. With that said, here comes the absolute no money this made.
Lack of money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Alrighty.
Thing's balance sheet is as bad as Mark's checkbook.
Oh my God. Leave me my finances alone. You're not. I ask you for help, you give me shitty picks, and I end up, having to gamble more. You don't get to talk. On a budget of $60 million, this thing made $15.5 million. It just needed to make $120 million, and it couldn't do that. Or something.
It probably won't, but I don't know.
We're running into it's the second week out, and we're running into May. I mean, this weekend's the Fall Guy. It's not going to make $120 million. What are you out of your mind?
No, probably not. And I doubt it's going to command that from a streaming platform too. So yeah, this is a money loser. In fairness, and you and I talked about this, I think last week.
Mm-hmm.
They spent nothing marketing this.
Yeah.
I mean this in all sincerity, I saw one trailer for this, and you and I were at the movies a fair amount at this point.
Yeah, I haven't seen any trailers for this ahead of any movies that I saw, and I won't watch trailers anymore on YouTube or when one of you nerds puts it in our group chat, because I go to the movies every week and I'm tired of seeing the same trailer 50 fucking times. So I only watch them ahead of whatever movie I'm seeing, and I never saw this one, which, going all the way back to the beginning of our show, we talked about like what happened to Guy Ritchie. I don't know. The studios are fucking racist against him because they don't help. They don't help either. There's no marketing of his movies.
Like the last two movies of his, I feel like they actually marketed The Gentleman, like that. You saw trailers and you saw internet ads for that and stuff. And then when that didn't do well, they kind of went, well, we're not putting money behind Guy Ritchie projects anymore. So Ruse de Guerre. I saw one internet trailer at one point. That was it. Yeah. This one I saw one trailer.
It makes me wonder why they're greenlighting his stuff. Like, it's not like he's getting like a lot of independent, financing here, because like these are coming out from major studios.
Yeah,
I don't fucking get it. But anyway, in the United States, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare was released alongside Abigail and Spy X Family Code White, and was projected to gross $5 to $8 million from less than 3,000 theaters in its opening weekend. Made $3.7 million on its first day, $1.45 million from previews. It went on to debut $9 million, finishing fourth behind Civil War, Abigail, and Godzilla multiplied by Kong. In its second weekend, dropped 57% to gross $3.86 million, finishing sixth. All right, so here's the weekend that was. Challengers, for those of you who like polyamory, and throuples and whatnot, non-traditional relationship dynamics, and tennis, and Zendaya. That was the number one movie of the weekend.
Well, hang on. It's the number one movie of the weekend with a pithy 15 million. Like, this was a tepid week in general.
Yeah. And delayed from last year, by the way. Unsung Hero debuted at number 2. Godzilla multiplied by Kong, 5 weeks out, maintained its position at number 3. And
Continues
Civil War
along.
Civil War dropped from 1 to 4 in its third week. Abigail dropped from 2 to 5. Hey, speaking of things dropping. Just stop with the fucking MonsterVerse movies, people. I know Abigail isn't technically a MonsterVerse movie because that's a dead thing. Universal monster movie, not Godzilla.
So the Dark Universe.
Yeah, the Dark Universe. I just just stop already.
Abigail's gonna wind up doing fine. It had a reasonable budget.
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare in its second week dropped from 4 to 6. Yikes.
Yep.
Kung Fu Panda 8 weeks out dropped from 6 to 7. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire 6 weeks out dropped from 7 to 8.
Speaking of bombs,
yeah. Dune, one of the few movies making money, dropped from 8 to 9. In its first week out, Boy Kills World debuted at number 10. This poor fucking film. I'm not going to say too much about it because I'm actually going to be on movies that don't suck and some that do. I will be reviewing with Neil and Chris Monkey Man, which I saw with my kids, and Boy Kills World, which I also saw with my kids, both of which they loved. As a matter of fact, the feedback I got from my kids for Boy Kills World was the best movie they've seen all year. Between that and Lisa Frankenstein, my kids, lover of indie pictures.
You have failed them in some very profound ways.
So it's like top 3 movies of the year: Monkey Man, Lisa Frankenstein, and Boy Kills World.
When your new release barely edges out the 45th anniversary re-release of Alien, which I need to go see in theaters before it goes away, actually, you're struggling a little bit.
Yeah, Boy Kills World is the kind of movie that appeals to kids my kids' age that no other parent besides me will take their kid to see.
Yeah, I think when you mentioned that, I said, when you're hyper violent, Gonzo style action extravaganza piece plays well with the 10 to 14-year-olds, that's not a good sign.
Right. Well, it's so funny, and I'll talk more about what I thought of the movie. I mean, I was fine. My kids, I was there for my kids. I didn't even want to go see this thing, but I was there for my kids and my girlfriend. No, my girlfriend's got that one. I was there for my kids. We had a good time at the movies. It was fine. I was entertained by it, but my daughter apparently went back to school and told all of her, very Christian, very conservative, very Floridian friends about this movie, and they all went, "Oh my God, we want to go see this thing." And she was like, "Your parents will never take you. Only my father takes us to see the completely inappropriate movies." And that's the big problem.
Hasn't warped me in any sort of meaningful way.
Not at all. Shut up. Anyway, I just like it's a movie where it's like, who the fuck did you think was gonna go see this thing? And I guess like if you're an adult but you're still trapped in your 10-year-old, with a 10-year-old brain, that group. But how many of them could possibly be out there that also, go see indie movies? Like this, I'm sure will do fine once it's available to watch at home, and it'll probably find like a cult following. But as a movie that was meant for theatrical exhibition, I have no idea what the fuck these people were thinking. Anyway, Alien debuted at number 11, the 2024 re-release. Monkey Man dropped from 9 to 12. Spy X Family Code White dropped 5 to 13. The Mummy re-release from debuted at number 14. Other debuts are The Roundup Punishment at number 26. Humane at 33. Nowhere Special 37. The feeling that the time for doing something has passed at 38.
Boy, do I know that feeling.
Yeah. And that was the weekend. That was worldwide on the dime, baby.
Almost
Dune,
no change.
Dune crossed 700 million. That was the big news of this week. That's number 1. Godzilla X Kong is actually doing pretty well. I'm sure they'd like it to do better, but it's doing fair to middling.
Didn't they spend like $200 million on that?
I mean, then they made more than double their.
Well, then we got to start factoring. Well, again, then we got to think about advertising. Like, I'm not calling it a loss.
Right.
I'm just saying, if that doesn't hit 600 million, they're probably not making much.
Here's the thing: if they come away from this having a tiny profit and the thought maybe we should stop making these while we're ahead, good enough for government work. That's all I need to happen here. Kung Fu Panda 4 is at number 3 at 503 million, and then step off a cliff.
Precipitous drop.
To watch that first step, it's a Lulu. Coming in at number 4 is $188 million Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Please stop making these fucking movies already.
If you don't know what you're doing with that IP, leave it alone.
Bob Marley, One Love, 177. The Beekeeper from fucking January at
Beekeeper's going to be here for a long time, Mark. It used to see in The Beekeeper.
Mean Girls at number 7. Madam Web, God help us all, at number 8. And not even breaking 100 million, Poor Argyle at number 9. And then Exuma at number 10. Civil War, still, edging along there at number 11 at 89 million.
It might pass Exuma. Might.
Challengers debuted on the charts at 26 million at number 22. I can't imagine anyone's going to see that movie beyond this point. Like, I haven't really even heard any, like, oh, the movie is saucy. Like, go see Zendaya being a throuple. Like, nah, no one gives a shit. At least that's the
gonna have to explain to me the Zendaya attraction at some point because I don't get it.
She's attractive and olive skinned. That's why. That's all you need to know. Most humans find her attractive.
Okay.
Anyway,
I look, I'm not saying she's an ugly woman. She's not, but I don't get it.
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is currently at number 37 with 16 million. Late Night with the Devil, which just got reviewed on by Half in the Bag, the Red Letter Media guys. That's at number 44.
Our stuff, huh? Is that what they're doing over there?
That's right. They're biting our rhymes. Also had a conversation in that show about the AI generated artwork.
So did Alexis and I, and I'd be willing to bet ours was more coherent than theirs.
Lisa Frankenstein's at number 48 with less than 10 million. And The Fall Guy, apparently out in some territories already, has $8 million. So good for that.
That's probably going to do okay when it's all like we may have been sleeping on that one, you and me.
Yeah. Hey, do you like lesbians? Because I sure do, and so does most of the known universe. Drive Away Dolls, which was covered on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do. Less than $7 million. At number 60.
So apparently the world does not like lesbians.
They don't like when they're driving cars, at least. And that's really all that's like drawing.
Leave it alone. You don't need to go further down.
All right. So this weekend is The Fall Guy, which is based on a television show, though this movie looks nothing like that.
Not a darn thing.
So we'll be covering that back in our normal Monday slot next week.
Also based on a video game that it bears no resemblance whatsoever to this.
And then I'm going to Rockville. So I think we would have been talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, but I will be at Rockville. So we're taking a week off, and then we'll be back on the 20th with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And then Chris Owen from Movies That Suck and Some That Don't will be on that show. And then because Memorial Day is on a Monday, and I don't want to have to come back home to record if I'm out busy doing fun stuff. So Furiosa will be reviewed. It comes out on the 24th, last day of school here in Florida, and we'll be reviewing it on the 28th. So why does any of this matter? Well, we're talking about the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. No one's going to go see it in the month of May. Just nobody. So they'll go see The Fall Guy. They'll go see Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. They'll go see Back to Black, which we're not going to review. We don't have time.
I don't know what that is.
It's the Amy Winehouse movie.
Oh,
but
right.
I have a sneaky suspicion people are going to go see that.
Some probably.
And then, then Furiosa comes out, and it's, one of the bigger movies of this summer.
In theory.
And then the rest of the summer kind of goes like this real quick. We're skipping my birthday week. We're skipping another. Wow, there's nothing in the fucking month of June that we're doing. Oh, I take that back. Stuff got moved around is what happened.
You haven't updated that in a minute or two is all.
Okay. No. I know what happened here. And I think The Crow, something moved out of June, and that left Bad Boys Ride or Die available to review, and I won't do that to you. So we're not doing a Damn You Hollywood on it, but we are reviewing it because Ronnie Adams and I are going to do all things Bad Boys. We've already done A Long Road to Ruin on the first two. You and I reviewed the third one. I don't want to force you to review the fourth one, but I'm going to go see it because my kids want to go see it. So I said, well, Ronnie and I need a topic for the Whiskey Rebellion in the month of June. So we're doing all things Bad Boys, and we'll talk about it then.
What a terrible franchise. I don't know how that kept going.
People like black people. All right. June 17th is Inside Out 2. June 24th is finally a good movie. At least that's what I think it's going to, it'll be. It's The Bike Riders. And then July 1st is A Quiet Place Day 1. then Despicable Me 4. And then on Tuesday, July 16th, Robert and I will be looking at a Netflix movie, one of the very few we do. It'll be the first time all year we've done a split Netflix review. We'll be looking at Beverly Hills Cop Axel F and Hitman. Then we're back on Mondays for Twisters. Then Robert's going to walk into the woods to live deliberately, and I'm going to be left alone to review Deadpool 3 with my son. That'll be July. And we get to August.
You know, much as I have not enjoyed the Deadpool movies, and feel free to go back into our archives, listen to us talk about them.
Yeah,
this is not humor that... Okay, the second one we talk about.
Sure.
The first one we fight about. That's...
Yeah.
You know what? No, the first one was before I actually would fight with you. It was just you abusing me. It's a lot of me going, okay, here's my problems with this.
And me just going, no, you're wrong.
Yeah. And Mark going, shut up and have fun, dummy.
Well, it was like, here's all my charts and diagrams about why you're wrong. And Robert's like, why does the chipmunk keep talking?
It was a little bit of that. And again, the second one, look, we talked about it. I don't care for these movies. I don't care for Deadpool as a character. I get that people do, and I get why, and I don't begrudge anyone that, but I don't.
Right.
If there's something that could make that character more tolerable to me, giving him an appropriate character to play off of, like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, might be the missing element for my personal enjoyment.
You know, I've gotten more optimistic since the Super Bowl trailer. The second trailer kind of won me over, but I was talking to somebody about this because there are people that are kind of coming up to me going, "Hey, the new Deadpool's going to suck, right?" And I'm like, I know why they're saying it. They're looking at everything from Black Widow to the Marvels and going,
you know what? When we review that movie, we're gonna have to talk about how that's not a Marvel movie.
Right. Well, that's what I was getting to.
They're going to try and claim it. This is the swan song, epilogue, violent coda to the 20th Century Fox era of superheroes. Right. That's the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. What I tried to explain
to people. I said, Ryan Reynolds is still very much involved with this, and Disney, in one of the few sane decisions they've made in the past decade, just let him make his movie. I think with very little involvement. I think, I think there was a conversation that had to take place with Kevin Feige over, well, how does this fit in with Phase 5, whatever the fuck we're in right now?
Hey, here's the answer. It doesn't.
Well, I mean,
simple.
They had to bring in the TVA, so like the Loki stuff. Like I had a friend of mine at work.
It's not even the TVA. You don't understand. Like, this is what things. There have started to be rumors about this. That's not the TVA that he's dealing with. It's the MVA. You see,
ouch.
Hang on.
No,
hang on. Let me tell you what I've heard. I've heard. My ear to the ground.
Okay.
The TVA exists in the Disney Plus universe, right? This is the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
The MVA is the Multiverse Variance Authority. This is what has governed the 20th Century Fox side of things, and now they're fighting with the TVA.
So there was a conversation that took place.
I watched your soul die. Oh, it's so great.
There was a conversation that took place at dinner tonight between my ex-wife's current partner and my son, and these two ham sandwiches like to have fights at the dinner table about nothing. It's honestly, like, if it wasn't for the fact that I was focusing on my bet that I eventually lost, I don't know if I would have made it through dinner tonight. But they were talking about Deadpool, and they were going back and forth about how does Deadpool live? How does he die? How does he do this? How does he do that? And I finally kind of banged my hands on the table and I said, look, you morons, he does exactly what the writers tell him to do. He's a fictional fucking character. Get over it. And I stormed away. I put a mark-sized hole in the wall. But my point
you have to leave a hole in the wall.
Yes, it's important. Yeah, it's like Black Adam. I don't use doors. So my point being, like, I'm just so tired of like the needlessly complicating these fucking movies, and that stuff is just so stupid. Anyway, my point being, what I was trying to get to, and now I'm not entirely sure of my own argument, was because they mostly left the creative team in place to do mostly what they wanted, I'm sure Deadpool will be fine. Ryan Reynolds seems to have a handle on the audience and the character and knows about where to make him kiss. So I'm not totally afraid of what's going to happen here.
No,
anyway, finishing out the schedule.
That's the one that's going to make a lot of money this year. And here's what I'm going to say though.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get out ahead of all of you idiots. The number of takes after Deadpool makes money that's going to be this saved the MCU is going to make me vomit. This is not going to save the MCU, people.
No, there's already videos saying otherwise. Hey, so we got Borderlands, which comes out the same weekend as M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. That's August 9th. We're going to review Borderlands on the 12th, Alien Romulus on the 19th, and The Crow on the 26th, and that's going to be the end of summer. However, just to, real quick, Beetlejuice comes out September 6th. We will review it on September 9th, but all of that to say that, we are heading into summer here. So everything that has come out up to this point, forget about, because no one's going to see them anymore. It's all summer movies or bust. That's where we are. That's where we're at.
There's going to be a lot of, you and I have talked about this, man. This year is a wasteland. There's a lot of red ink, a lot of dead bodies going to be buried in the desert.
Well, I think this is the year of the correction. 2019, it was that part of the Wolf of Wall Street where everyone's making money hand over fist and the feds don't know what's going on in this campaign, in the champagne and Coke and caviar everywhere. And now after the stock market plummet and after everything, we have to now live in the real world, and we have to not give loans to Mexican families with no incomes to buy houses. Okay, we have to start giving real loans to real people with real incomes, and we have to start living in that universe. And I think this is the first year that that's going to happen. I think when I look at the movies and I look at the budgets, there's not too many of them that I think like, oof, Jesus Christ, why are we doing this? Why are we spending like drunken sailors?
Let me tell you why you're looking at 2024 and seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything that is still true of and is scheduled for 25 or 26.
Well,
look, in a sane world, the strikes gave them every opportunity to legitimately do some house cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
Because Hollywood is not sane, at least half of those that should have been shelved or scrapped or spun back up through another development process are just going to come out anyway and are just going to fail harder with even bigger budgets because now they've been reshot and retouched and re-edited. Captain America 4, featuring everyone's favorite Falcon, has had to be reshot 3 times. They still don't have a script. That's still supposed to come out. That's not changing.
You know how you get on me about being very much committed to something, even if I'm like proven wrong or whatever? Boy, that is Captain America 4. There's no, in a sane universe, that movie gets killed. They just don't do it anymore. They're like, we can't figure this the fuck out. Let's just throw it away. Maybe repackage it as a series or something.
Let's stop this for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Come back to it and try again. But let's stop throwing money on the fire.
Anyway, my point being, most of... I don't even want to, like, Marvel is its own fucking psychotic patient. But the rest of the movies that are coming out in 2025, I think, have gone through a lot of that retooling that you're talking about. And I think, look, at this point, everyone's realized, like, with the exception of Disney, they're still committed for some strange reason. But the rest of the known universe has figured out that we can't keep, we can't keep doing, what was it? The stupid Terminator woke future, whatever the fuck we kept calling it.
Dark fate. But you call it dark feminism.
Yeah, we can't live in the universe of Terminator dark feminism anymore. And so I think you're going to see the continued correction in 2025 with everyone except Disney, who are fully committed to going over the falls in a barrel. And this is nothing anyone can do about it at this point. All right. With that said, here we go with the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Alrighty. Here we go. We got 71% rotten and 92% audience score.
That's about right.
Yeah, so audience is 71, and when you move at the top credits, it's 62.
Yeah, that's about right still.
92 verified audience. All audiences only drops at a point. So
hang on. If you want to preserve go back to that interface you just had.
Yeah.
If you want to preserve the joke, you have to click to all critics right now, so that the next time you bring it up, it doesn't default to top critics.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see here.
Yeah, again, that's about right. Look, I have my problems with this movie, but if you ask me if this is a pass-fail, it's a pass. It's a weak pass, but it's a pass.
All right, the AI writes, cranking up a true story of daring do into a high-octane... This is not high-octane. Action flick that's heavy on spectacle, if not suspense. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is another solid entry into Guy Ritchie's pantheon. And audience's consensus, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare delivers rock-solid, well-acted action with the added bonus of a story that's based on actual events. Okay, I feel like AI wrote that as well.
It did, and I wish more people weren't toaster ovens.
Yeah. All right. Critics review. Here we go. Audrey Fox of Looper.com. As far as espionage films go, it's a somewhat clumsy one, crafted competently, but without much flair.
Not unfair.
Mark Feeney of the Boston Globe, former newspaper, top critic. Ministry offers all kinds of collateral nonsense to pad the main nonsense.
Okay, that's a bit. The main nonsense is not really nonsense. I'll give you the collateral nonsense, by the way. I will absolutely give you that one.
Dennis Schwartz of Dennis Schwartz for movie reviews. Despite its pluses and being a crowd pleaser, it's still a crude film.
No. Being a wrong fit does not necessarily mean the movie is unrefined. I don't think this is an unrefined film.
Lauren Coates of AV Club, top critic. Never reaches beyond familiar low-hanging fruit. I want to grab your low-hanging fruit, madam.
And now that you made it weird, I can't say what I was going to say, so good for you.
Oh, go ahead.
Nope.
Okay. Abby Bernstein, Assignment X. Entertaining if a bit smug.
How do you get smug out of this? I mean, don't get me wrong, that's not an inaccurate descriptor for a lot of Guy Ritchie movies. I don't think this movie comes across as smug. It's just breezy and, again, a little bit too Guy Ritchie in places it shouldn't be Guy Ritchie.
Black Robert Winfree, Armin White of National Review. Though no more realistic than a QT debauch or Matthew Vaughn's ludicrous Kingsman franchise, Ritchie's movie free fashion such adolescent sadism so that this patriotic violence seems larky.
I get what he's going for here. I really do. Pretending that this is not... equating this in terms of realism with the Kingsman franchise is more than a bridge too far, my man. That franchise is nothing but absurdity. This is not that.
Kevin Carr, Fat Guy at the Movies, not to be taken too seriously as it revels in its own.
Hey,
this is a silly film, but it's still a great deal of fun.
I'm glad you had fun at the Jingling Keys.
My arch enemy, Michael Medved of the Michael Medved Show. The action
Mark's theoretical best friend to this show and arch enemy both don't know he exists. It's kind of amusing.
The action is fast moving, though decidedly dubious in terms of historical reliability. Nevertheless, the film is full of energy and, yes, excitement.
Yeah. Again, I appreciate the fact that they kind of wanted to be inspired by the genuine historical events. When you take this much liberty with it, though, it kind of muddies those waters.
Michael Cook of KLRT TV. This felt like a low-red Quentin Tarantino film, but without the snappy dialogue or interesting characters. You know what?
Yeah, there's another part of me that thinks that Guy Ritchie finally saw Inglourious Bastards and went, well, I could do something adjacent to that.
Yeah.
And it turns out, no, you can't.
Kurt Loder, formerly of MTV, and now currently Creator Syndicate.
Formerly of the Human Race, Kurt Loder.
Unfortunately, the picture was crippled in advance by its script, which is filled with dialogue intended to be light and larky, but is actually overabundant and lacking in crackle, dragging the movie down like an anchor.
Again, I think there's a lot of writing problems here that needed to be ironed out before you ever started shooting, and they never ironed them out.
Jeremy Johns of JeremyJohns.com. It's fun, quirky, funny.
Nice adjective use there, buddy.
Yeah. People go to his website. People watch his reviews.
People do.
Let's see. Any more of our friends here? Kathia
my hunch is most of our friends didn't see this.
Yeah. Kathia Woods of Cup of Soul. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is characterized by a sense of flamboyant demeanor and audacious behavior.
What? Wait. Stop. Go back up to that for a second. I have to look at. Is that another quotation mark at the end of that sentence? You can see your screen better than I can see your projection of your screen. You forgot to edit out that quote from the PR material. There's no reason for that to be there.
Last one, because I enjoy him. Travis Hobson of Punch Drunk Critics. In short, the more ungentlemanly, the better.
How is that a useful review? How is that a useful pull? How is that anything?
Maybe his review was okay, but that was a dumb pull.
I've seen people genuinely suffering from punch drunk syndrome, and they're slightly more coherent than that.
Well, folks, we were supposed to do Sons of Anarchy season 3 last night, but Ronnie got his dates mixed up. So, and then I had my girlfriend here, and I needed to watch movies for Thursday since we're doing our Pride Month stuff. So I needed to watch Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and I needed to watch Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. So I did that instead.
One of those movies is kind of bad.
I'll talk about it Thursday.
Oh, you're good, dude. If you're honest with Sean about this, you're gonna have a fight, and I look forward to it.
Great. I enjoy fighting with Sean. And Jello. Anywho, so we kicked season 3 into the same date that we're going to do season 4 and do them together, because at this point, I'm not entirely sure how much there is for me to talk about with Sons of Anarchy. I mean, I'm only saying that because I've seen most of season 3 at this point. I still have to finish it, but I'm kind of like I picked this series because people kept telling me how great it was, but I think people are just overly fascinated with criminals and motorcycles. I'm not really entirely sure what the appeal of this show is beyond that.
Well, let me give you a couple of things about that show that are, again, kind of generally appealing.
Mm-hmm.
One, it's one of the more realistic looks into the outlaw biker culture that you'll ever find. It broke the mold for that in a lot of ways. Remember, this show's almost 10 years old at this point.
Right.
So this is also coming out at a time that's like similar to Breaking Bad. So you're dealing with, again, a different culture in terms of what people are wanting to watch. It's a decent adaptation of Hamlet, all things considered. You have some very good acting going on there. In particular, Katie Seagal, Ron Perlman, Charlie Hunnam. They're all very good.
Yeah, it's not a bad show. It's just
there's a bit of rose-colored glasses that go with it.
So here's the thing: like when Jesse and I did all the David Simon stuff, your remarks about David Simon being a one-trick pony aside, there was stuff to talk about. There was stuff to talk about in every single show that we did, including Treme. I could talk about culture. I could talk about politics. I could talk about showcraft. Everything David Simon gave us, there was something for me to talk about. I don't know if so far, after almost 2.5 seasons of this, I could say that about Sons of Anarchy. And here's the thing I'll tell you. I could say it about The Shield. I could say it about Justified. I could say it about Rescue Me. So it's not that, oh, well, you're just stuck on David Simon, or you're stuck on HBO. No, there were plenty of stuff on FX that I could find things to talk about. There were things that happened in all the shows I just mentioned that I could draw out and have a discussion about. I'm having difficulty with that with Sons of Anarchy.
Part of the problem with that is you're going season by season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look.
Well, I think that's why when I gave Jesse the option of postponing it because Ronnie wasn't going to be able to make it Monday, or just or doing it without him, he was like, let's just postpone it. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I watch seasons 3 and 4 together, I'll have more to talk about.
Taken as a whole, there's probably more to talk about than if you go season by season, especially. I like the show, but there's some dead parts in each individual episode that.
Yeah. So anyway,
there's some artistic choices that I still kind of cock my head at sometimes when I think back on it.
So this Thursday, I got a double shot. I'll be on movies that don't suck and some that do. We'll be reviewing Boy Kills World and Monkey Man. And then at 10 o'clock, myself and Sean will be kicking off Pride Month a month early because he's getting married in June, assuming I think that's still happening. And we're kicking it off with a look at some trans movies. The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, 2-1 Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, and Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Next week, we've got No Bananas. Monday, we'll have The Fall Guy here on Damn You Hollywood. That'll be myself and just Robert. Yay, just me and you again. It's so much better when it's just me and you. Tuesday, myself and Jason.
Almost like monogamy is the superior form of human
interaction. Myself and Jason, and maybe Dorian, who the fuck knows. We'll be doing a fun triple feature. We're looking at Freddy versus Jason, Lake Placid versus Anaconda, and Sharktopus versus Werewolf. This is a show that has been
two of those are okay.
And then Robert and Alexis and David, I think, are going to be looking at Shogun.
That's the plan.
The FX series in 2024. So that's what's going on with me. What's going on with you?
Well, you mentioned Shogun. That will be the 8th. We're just going to get together and talk about a good television show for once. And boy, is that nice, Mark. Can I just tell you? Hang on. Not just TV. I mean, like, because of how we do this, we go through a lot of crap. We go through a lot of stuff that is bad or just forgettable and middle of the road.
Yeah.
And it's so nice and refreshing when we do find something, be it a movie or a television show or another, that's like universally good. Yeah. And we can just kind of sit back and go, this was good.
Honestly,
here's all the good stuff.
If it wasn't for the fact that I have other things I got to be doing and I'm going to Rockville the next day, I'm kind of sad I'm missing out on that review. But I got something better to do the night before I go to Rockville. I don't know if they picked that up on microphone or not.
That was awkward. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I also
yell at me about my faulty memory of MMA, will you?
You hosted a show, Mark.
I host a lot of things I don't know anything about.
You were hosting the podcast. You covered a bunch of those events.
Don't expect me to remember things. And then
don't expect me to remember my own life.
Look, it's been a rough few years. Go on with your plugs already.
I understand. I'm just saying. Like, here's the other reason you have like a weird haywire about Connor. You had to talk about him and his rise with like me and Pat and Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us were down on him for so much of it that's just stuck in your head.
Yeah, I can't get that out of my head now. All right, come on, do your plugs.
So I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. WWE SmackDown on Friday. I believe this is the go-home show for their for Backlash, which will be in Lyon, France at some unreasonably early hour here in the United States. And they just did the draft, and they shifted almost nothing. I wish I was joking, but this was a giant waste of time, and SmackDown got objectively worse. You see, we lost Damage Control in the LWO, which I don't really care about that much. I love Rey Mysterio, but he can go to Raw, and that'll be fine. But replacing him, Nia Jax, Baron Corbin, and what was the other shift that came over that way? It was kind of it. There's Blair Davenport from NXT moved to SmackDown. And, oh, yeah, we got Shinsuke Nakamura. And I like Nakamura just fine. But, yeah, Nia Jax and Baron Corbin on the same show on a weekly basis should be a war crime. Just fuck me. So that. I cover UFC events on Saturdays when they have them. This last Saturday was UFC on ESPN 55. A show so forgettable, more people were watching and talking about the bare knuckle boxing event because it was actually kind of entertaining.
That's great.
Really was. There was a boxing card that same night too that was also more entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want my full report, MMAZone411mania.com. This coming Saturday is UFC 301. A very good fight night masquerading as a pay-per-view that is probably not worth the $80.
It's up against the Canelo fight. So we'll see. But even the Canelo fight, I don't think people. It's one of those where if you're interested in watching Canelo fight, it's fine. But if you're actually, if you actually want a competitive fight, meh.
Canelo's been ducking David Benavidez for a while now, and this is another instance of that.
Yeah.
That's right. Canelo's ducking, and I know all the scorecards have already been mailed in for the Munguia fight. So you know what?
Well,
bite me.
I'm going to put money on him knocking out Munguia, so I need that to happen.
Canelo doesn't knock people out anymore.
He might.
Yeah, he might. I'll give you he might. So, again, if you want my full thoughts on both of those events, a review and a preview, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast on Sunday evenings. So Monday morning, as you're driving into work, you can listen to me talk MMA. This episode, again, is a preview of 301. I laugh at the Nevada State Athletic Commission continuing to be useless. And I talk about Mark Hunt being a chess master. And I'm not joking about that. Legitimately one of the top percentage players on chess.com. Good on him.
All right. Folks,
Mark's hero, the Super Samoan Mark Hunt.
Mark Hunt decides. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us on on Damn You Hollywood.
I hadn't thought about that meme in a long time, so I thank you for bringing that back to my
and
memory.
Immediately went to the 401 Ground and Pound radio show. I'm so tired.
Mark Hunt decides, and we switch podcasts.
Folks, thank you for joining us on Long Road to Ruin. Be well.
There we go again.
All right. Thank you very much for the Metal Hammer of Doom. Be well, be safe, and behave.